was a band. There was a band from England with GBH, Great Big Hair, and I remember that you were throwing firecrackers at them, and that was when Victoria finally got so mad at you that she didn't speak to you for a long, long time after that.
She doesn't speak to me now either.
That and the killing off Daniel Foreman.
Those you gotta tell that story.
Well,
I'd forgotten about that.
Daniel Foreman. Oh, this is one. I'm going to go off on tangents. Daniel Foreman's a metal sculptor. He now lives in Augusta, where I am from, and in Augusta, Georgia. Actually, when I moved back to Augusta from Savannah, he was there. But he was staying in Prescription's gallery, which was the rubble-destructed building that Scott was busily remodeling by tearing in little pieces, little plaster pieces. And now, I don't remember what the original fight was about, but Daniel was more or less living there, or did he just have studio space there? He was living there, and he had these paintings that Scott decided were terrible, and he threw them down the elevator shaft and destroyed them, which Daniel was not happy with. They had a big blow up, and Daniel ended up moving out, and Daniel was performing with the Spo-its at that point, and so whenever Scott had a falling out with a Spo-its member, he killed them all, and they always died in a way that was very appropriate to them. Daniel, being a metal sculptor and electrical tinkerer, he had this Celica that most of the panels were taken on. It looked kind of like a Mad Max car, and wiring sticking out everywhere. So the story was that Daniel had stopped at a stoplight, and his car had caught fire, and he just couldn't get out, and it was very sad. And so Scott spread this rumor.
No, I did not spread this rumor. I called you on the telephone.
You called me.
Ted told you the story on the telephone.
Okay.
And you were not believing me because you know the way I do, and you'd heard about the fight already. And Victoria was listening in on the phone call across the room, and you were going, Daniel died.
No, I remember it differently. I remember Victoria calling me on the phone and saying, "Did you hear about Daniel?" And I remember you telling me, "This is what happened to Daniel." And I knew you had the falling out, and I was like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, I don't think that's true. I finally got you to admit that it wasn't true, but this is how you were going to kill him off, and that's how you did it, and it would be funny. Really, it would be funny. And I was like, okay, whatever, I won't say anything. And Victoria calls, and she's like, and this was like 2 hours after you had told me this. Victoria calls, and she says, "Did you hear about what happened to Daniel? It's so terrible. I'm so upset. Blah 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 blah."
We're going to the hospital to see.
We're gonna go track. We're gonna find out. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm not gonna tell her, but she's so distraught. Finally, I take the easy way out and I say, Victoria, doesn't Scott always kind of kill off the members of the Spo-its if he gets mad at them? And I led her to the answer, gently. At which point, she was irate.
I remember.
And I think what happened was that that's when we were living together, and she said, "Is Scott there? Put him on the phone."
Yes, I got to remember totally different than that.
Okay.
I remember I called you up at our house to tell you the story.
Right.
And you were like not believing me and recounting the story back to me, and Victoria was listening. Because I'd only told like 1 or 2 people at this time. I'd not like spread it around like I usually did. And then Victoria had then gone in the other room and started making phone calls to California and all about people that they.
But that wouldn't have been possible at that time because nobody had cell phones.
No, it wasn't a cell phone. It was another phone. She'd left the house to go make phone calls.
She had gone, like next door to me.
Yeah, and made phone calls all over the place because she was pissed off at me about the expense of her. Then she comes back in.
I don't remember that.
Comes back in, and then you put her on the phone with me.
Okay.
That's the way I remember it. But
well, both stories are pretty good.
Both stories have convergent points. And who knows after all these years? All right, I think that's it.